Good morning. We sent in a request for the entrance music, and it wasn't granted. Back in Pittsburgh, we have this song, "Here we go, Steelers. Here we go, Steelers." That's right. So, yeah. Look, my colleague Donald Norcross told me last night that by day 3, it's very hard to pay attention at this conference, so I wanted to make sure everyone was awake when I got out here and started out. And I'm a Marine, a Catholic, and a Democrat, so I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm a glutton for punishment. So the first time I ever got to speak to most of you was 4 years ago at this time, when I had just come off a special election in Western Pennsylvania. And one of the funny things about it was that the national media kept coming in and trying to describe what type of Democrat I was. And they were reaching for all these basically different ways of saying that I was a really boring white guy. But they got clever with it. And one of the best ones that I think I shared with you at that time was somebody wrote in the Atlantic magazine that I looked like the type of guy that Taylor Swift would dump in a music video. So I'd like to think I'd lived up to that in the last 4 years. But hey, at least I was in the game, right? I mean, if I'm getting dumped, at least I was in the game. But since then, it's 4 years later, I'm running another campaign, and it always kind of bugs me. I just think, what if the media actually described people the way that normal people do? By their achievements, by what they get done, by the results that they bring from their jobs. If they did that, they might find out that 4 years ago, when I ran that first campaign, the very first thing I did was sit down with your members in Western Pennsylvania and ask them, what's it going to take? We knew in Western Pennsylvania that we had all these counties outside of Pittsburgh that were Democratic voting banks for decades and decades. Working people that understood intuitively, without any explanation, who was actually on their side. And then 2016 comes along, and all of a sudden that's not looking like it's true anymore. And the congressional district that I originally ran in, Trump had won that by 19 percentage points. There wasn't even a Democratic candidate in 2016. And so when I went and sat down with your members and we talked about one thing, how do you go and get those people back? That was what they knew. And at that point, it was considered so out of reach that we didn't have involvement by the National Democratic Party. We weren't getting funding or attention from the National Democratic Party. But the thing I'll never forget is that your members knew this was possible. They knew that it wasn't a fool's errand to go out and try to bring people back. They knew exactly why it was that they got away from us in the first place and what we needed to do. And so in that very first meeting, we talked about two things: paychecks and pensions. And I still remember it to this day. They said, just go out there every single day and talk about those two things, and don't talk about anything else. Don't get drawn into all the other conflicts that are talked about on cable news every night. Talk to every single person you meet about your paycheck and your pension, and you'll be successful. We did that. We were successful, and I'm even more happy to say that 4 years later, I can stand here in front of you and say, we didn't just talk about pensions. In the American Rescue Plan, we saved 170 or more multi-employer union pensions forever. Forever. And when it comes to paychecks, we didn't just talk about paychecks. We didn't just tinker around the edges with your FICA contributions or something like that. We are bringing you a decade of infrastructure paychecks to the tune of trillions of dollars, trillions with a T. This is a time when everyone wants to focus on the negative, about our politics, about our country, about the state of our country's infrastructure. I saw two public opinion polls recently that I thought were very interesting. One was that the approval rating of Congress as an institution, 18%. 18% these days, not really great when you're a member of that institution. And so I was wondering how we would compare to maybe other people who've been in the news for negative reasons recently. And I saw that Will Smith's popularity took a 30% nosedive after the Oscars a week ago. He's still at 50%, and Congress is at 18. That's how bad things have gotten. And I know I have to be careful because if you talk too bad about a person from Philadelphia, one of them might come up on stage and slap me. So I don't know where the Philly guys are. I don't know where the Philly guys are sitting in here, but I'm kind of on edge. I'm on edge the whole time I'm up here. But you know, the fact, not my opinion, the fact is that we are still the most powerful country in the world with the strongest economy, the best innovation, the best combination of innovation and natural resources of any place on the planet. Any place on the planet. And the infrastructure bill shows that we still have what it takes. We understand not only what it is that made America great, but what makes America great today and will make us great long into the future. These investments, this bill, this whole discussion, it's about the future. That's what's so important about it. You know, we have been bogged down forever in discussions about the past and how to get back to the past and what the past was like. These investments are about what we need in the future. They show that for once, people in Washington could, even to a small degree, set aside partisanship and do what was right for the American worker. That is what that bill showed. And throughout our history, whenever we have invested in the American worker, placed the American worker first, our entire country has prospered. That's who we are. That's the American formula. You know, in my congressional district is a town called Shippingport, Pennsylvania. And many of you might have heard of it before. I'm sure the members of the IBEW that are here have. It was the site of the first civilian nuclear reactor anywhere in the United States. It was built in the middle of the 1950s. And to me, that site, which is now the home of a second nuclear power plant, it symbolizes and represents everything that we are trying to do here. You know, when World War II started, there was no nuclear industry of any kind in the United States, and many of the most basic concepts were untested and unproven and even unknown. And within 4 years, we had engaged in a race as a country to win the race to nuclear weapons and nuclear technology. The Manhattan Project, when it got to its full size, it was as large as the United Auto industry. A lot of people don't know that, but in terms of buildings, manpower, personnel, money, it was gigantic. The investment that it took to make sure we won the race to that technology and not the Germans and not the Russians. And then a decade afterward, Eisenhower's talking about atoms for peace. He's building civilian power plants all around the country and even all around the world. And we took an investment in a key element of our national infrastructure and we made it a tool of our national security. That's where we are again today. No one in here knows exactly what the next shipping port is going to be, but we do know that we're in a race. We are in a race in real time to make sure that Vladimir Putin is not supplying Europe with coal and oil and natural gas, but to make sure that it's us instead. And to do that, we need more pipelines. We need more LNG export facilities. All over the world. All over the world, the United States has the opportunity to lead on energy in the 21st century, to be the suppliers. But we can't do it without you and your members, without the expertise that you bring to this. You know, I mean, even just in the future opportunities like hydrogen are incredible. And China knows it, and Europe knows it, and they want to be the ones to win the race to that technology. But here in the United States, in my home state of Pennsylvania, we still have the expertise when it comes to making steel, when it comes to freight rail, when it comes to aviation, all things that could be powered by hydrogen in the new economy. But you know what? We have 3 million miles of natural gas pipelines in the United States, 3 million. You know how many miles of hydrogen pipelines we have? 1,600. There's a lot of work to do, and we need you to do it. If we're going to lead the world again and invent these new technologies and sell them to the rest of the world like we have in the past, and use that advantage to promote freedom and open markets around the world the way that we always have, we need you and your members. You know, we are in a new world with entirely new challenges, and we have to think differently. We're figuring out how to make sure we build things like semiconductors here in the United States. We recently had a bill to create a strategic transformer reserve. And for those of you out there, we don't mean the cartoons and the toys. We mean actual power transformers for the electric sector. And we're doing that all with Davis-Bacon protections. We're making sure that union labor is used. But there's actually an old way of thinking here. The way that we won World War II, the way that we won the race to nuclear energy and created an entire century of prosperity was that people worked together. You know, labor and government and the business world and universities worked together on all of these projects. And that has been the toughest thing for us to make sure happens here in Washington, D.C. And so if there's one thing I can leave you with, it's that we need you and your members to do the work itself. We need you to go out and train the apprentices and bring people into the workforce and be ready for this massive amount of construction that we have to do to lead in the new century. But even beyond that, we need you to do what the Western Pennsylvania guys did with me when I was a brand new candidate. You know, I had a lot of good ideas. I had a lot of energy. I had all the things that Marine officers have. You know, I wasn't afraid to fail. I was willing to take a big risk. But what I needed was you all to point me in the right direction as to the interests, you know, the understandings of your own members, to talk about how it was that our party had sort of drifted away from them and how we could tack back to where we needed to be. And the vital point was that your group was willing to come in early in a race before the pundits said it was doable, before it was on the radar screen of the national media and people all over the country. You guys know what it is that we need to be successful and to keep faith with your members, who represent so much more than just your own membership, but you know, the very existence of a middle class in our country. And so we need you involved in this process. We need you to not be afraid to fail in primaries and elections, to do the right thing and back the right person like you've always done. You belong at the center of our national political life. It is long past time when politicians of either party should be afraid to say the word union, because we need you and we can't get anywhere without you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back with you. Thank you.